Hey there, guys, and a big welcome back to Blaze TV podcast. It's Ed Kimberley, and I've got Stu Coles with me. And our guest on this really special edition is someone you may not be very familiar with, but you sure will be by the end of this one. It's Bakersfield assistant coach Adam Krug. Adam, if you don't know, was the head coach at Adrian College, where a bunch of the Coventry Blaze for the 24-25 season have played hockey over the years. And he's got such a great wealth of knowledge about those guys, about what it takes to be a successful hockey club. And it felt a little bit of it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't get him on. So, Coach, I really, really appreciate you putting some time aside to do this, because I appreciate you literally got to your new gig in Bakersfield yesterday.
Yeah, no, Ed, I appreciate you and Stu having me on. Looking forward to this. It's been neat to learn a lot about Coventry, having Alessio Luciani there last year, and then Kevin Moore coming over and taking the job after he left Nottingham. Just really excited for all those guys. But I'm thrilled, for Kevin to get his first professional hockey head coaching position and see what some of our Bulldogs can do over there.
Yeah, no, I mean, if Cam and Heinze or anything like Luch was able to do last year, we've got a couple of winners in the bag for sure. Before we hit record, we were just talking about your playing days, actually, because we were talking about you playing pro a little bit in Europe. You were in the Netherlands. And you also played as well. Funny story, hockey's a small world, at Adrian, when you were studying and playing hockey at the same time. Just, I guess, tell us a little bit about that experience of playing in Europe, because you were in the Netherlands when we were just saying it was in its heyday. Guys like Jeff Smith were coming over, who Blaze fans will remember as the big guy that patrolled our blue line for a little while, and there was some good hockey being played, some fun hockey too.
Yeah, I actually played in the same town Smitty played in. I played in Nijmegen, so I heard a ton of Smitty stories from when I was down there. But I enjoyed my experience in the Netherlands. At the time, there was a bunch of former Division I guys from the NCAA, some guys with ECHL ties, some guys even with a handful of American Hockey League games. So the hockey was definitely really good. It's been a little bit disappointing for me as an alum of that league to see that they backed the number of imports down. But I also understand why they wanted to do that. Whether it be to give more Dutch players opportunity or if it was just financially driven. I understand the business part of it, of course. But my experience there was great. I actually had some conversations with some teams in the EIHL to come on over, and I actually ended up going back to the United States the next year. Started in Fort Wayne with the Comets and then played in the Southern Pro League up until about Christmas time, and then went over to Romania. And that was a completely different experience than what I had in the Netherlands.
Yeah, no, I mean, culturally pretty far apart. But there's some good hockey being played in Romania, to be fair. Sixth Editor are a really good outfit. They tend to do pretty well in the Erste Liga. And I guess before we talk about some of the guys who are going to be on the Coventry Blaze this season, the thing that really interests me is, like, you see trends, right? You always have this no matter where you are in the world of hockey. You have trends of like leagues, teams, guys that have played under a certain coach that you kind of cross paths with. And one of the most recent ones in the UK was youth sports. Like, we weren't really recruiting youth sports guys, and all of a sudden everybody had a handful. And certainly over the last couple of seasons, D3 has been a well that some elite league clubs are tapping, because it's frankly got a very, very good standard. What was it kind of like when you were playing at Adrian compared to when you were coaching?
Yeah, you know what? I think the first 5 to 10 teams, were pretty good and had some pretty good players, and you saw guys go on and carve out some minor pro hockey careers. But it just didn't have that pop. It didn't have that sex appeal that maybe some of the programs have now. And whether that just be the way the programs are run, or just that these programs are a little bit unknown. The players are unknown a little bit. What can they do? And you've seen more guys get opportunity to play in the ECHL over here. And then they've taken big strides over in Europe and some different places. And those guys have had success. And that, if you want something to grow, you have to have success. If you take guys from that level and they don't do well, other guys aren't going to get an opportunity. It's the same thing that I look at with the job that I got in Bakersfield. There's 82 other head coaches at the Division III level, that probably would love an opportunity like this. So I got to do a good job, not just for my career and for our organization here, but I want to do a good job so other guys can get that opportunity. So to your point, In 07, 08, 09, the hockey was pretty good, but it wasn't where it was or where it is now. And part of that was the unknown of Division III hockey. The internet is very different. Streaming is very different. The quality of streaming is very different. So now coaches like Kevin Moore can hop online and watch a game in real time, or they can wait for some scouting software to have the games pop up, and you can go back and watch a kid play. And so I think that it's evolved. But there's some really, really good players. There were back then too, but now I think there's more. With the social media, these kids get to see what the programs have from locker rooms and the amenities, how the guys get treated, which is what this generation of kid really wants. They want to get treated well. With treating guys well, those guys got to show up and they got to perform. And I think that's something that at Adrian we've done. We've treated our guys well, and they've been expected to perform, and they're doing that.
Certainly one thing I've noticed about Kevin straight away is he's very, very good at talking to players. He really understands them, no matter whether they're a first-year pro, whether they've been around the game for 10 or so years at the professional level. He seems to be able to find a level that they can kind of relate to. And of course, he was your assistant coach for like 2 seasons. So I guess tell us a little bit about Kevin. What was it like having him work for you? And I guess what can the Blaze fans expect from him?
Yeah, Kevin was a culture changer for us. We were a good team. We couldn't get over the hump winning a national title, but we were good. And we had a ton of talent. We won a ton, and we won, conference titles and all that. But when it came down to the big one, we just couldn't get over the hump. And when Kevin came in, so many things changed. His detail was phenomenal. Our player meetings went from being, 5 to 15 minutes long to being 30 to 60 minutes long. And some of them ended up, being mentally exhausting because Kevin had the ability to pull information out of guys and just keep pulling those layers back and really look under the hood and see what makes a guy tick or understand, why does a guy act a certain way? Why is he this way? Oh, wow, you've been through a lot. Those kinds of things are what I think Kevin has done such a great job with helping me understand. Now our exit meetings at the end of the season, when we get done with those, they're over a week long to get through everybody. But the guys, they deserve that. If we want to do what's right by them, we got to get to know them better. And Kevin did a great job there. So I think Kevin's ability to get the very best out of guys is top notch. He puts his heart and soul into it, and he cares about the guys so much. So he's going to take that time. I'm sure he's doing that now during training camp. Getting to know those guys, probably having some introductory meetings with those guys individually, and try to see where he thinks guys fit in, socially, mentally, and then obviously the physical stuff will come into play on the ice. But Kevin's very detailed, and I think that's what you guys are going to see from him there.
And this, again, I mentioned earlier that hockey's a really small world. Your paths actually crossed before he got into coaching, because I think he played in Evansville with your brother, and Adam Krug also had a brief cameo for a game or two there too, right?
Yeah, I had a 1-game stint. I was actually coaching the United States Hockey League, the USHL junior league over here, in my first year. And my brother Matt was playing for Evansville. Kevin was one of the 2 goalies, and I guess I didn't put it together at the time. But once Kevin got into the coaching world, when he was at Princeton University doing hockey operations, and Ron Fogarty, who was my coach at Adrian, had Kevin at Princeton. We ended up meeting each other a couple of different times, and Kevin said, well, we were in Evansville together, and we connected the dots, and that was pretty fun. The funny thing is, as you guys know, the injuries start to pile up, and when you're limited with roster numbers, you're looking for players. And Evansville, Indiana is not in the middle of hockey central, so to speak. So they were decimated by injuries. I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is about a 3-hour drive from there. My brother Matt called me, said, hey, like, any chance you can play this weekend? I said, man, we've got a game Friday, we've got a game Saturday. You guys have a 3-3. I said, I might be able to talk to our owner and see if he'd be interested in me going down and playing on Sunday. So I did that, played 1 game. We lost barn burner, something like 7-6. I had an assist. Wow. Played okay considering I had been retired at that point for 11, 12 months. So it was interesting when Kevin brought that up, though.
The other thing as well, just to link this in, and I'll hand over to Stu in a sec because I realize I've talked a lot. One player that I think Coventry Blaze fans would have loved to have seen not have an injury blighted season, you mentioned in injuries there, is Matt Thompson, who is somewhat filling the void of you leaving, Adrian, to go to Bakersfield. He's going to be the associate head coach there. Just tell us a little bit how Matt's getting on, because I always kind of had a sneaking suspicion he'd make a good coach.
Yeah, Tomer's great. Timing is everything sometimes, and when Matt went through his last injury there in Coventry, basically ended his career. He had decided in July of that summer that he was going to hang him up. And wouldn't you know, my assistant coach Adam Phillips at the time, Philly had just taken a job in the USHL in Muskegon to go there as an assistant, kind of get a lay of the land at that level. And I called Matt and I said, "Hey, like, is there any chance you might be interested in coaching soon?" And he started laughing. He was sitting on the deck with his dad having a beer, and he said, "You know what?" He goes, "I told my dad like 4 days ago that I'm done playing and I want to find a coaching job." So there wasn't much discussion. There was not a whole lot of interview or anything like that. It was just, "Hey, is this going to work or is it not?" And next thing you know, we're working on getting Matt a visa and got him over to Adrian, and we spent the last 2 years there. And he's a heck of a coach and another detail-oriented guy. Really good X's and O's, really good technical guy when it comes to helping the guys' skills. He was good in the face-off dot as a centerman himself, and he did a lot of work with our centers in the face-off dot. So Matt was really good for me the last couple of years. We do everything together just with a small staff. He certainly was capable and ready to potentially be the head coach when I left. But they ended up, going with Adam Phillips, who was a previous assistant that we won a national title with in 2022. And Philly and Matt knew each other and had worked with each other for half a season. I think a pretty seamless fit for those guys to work together. And for Matt to get the bump to the associate head coach is definitely an awesome opportunity for him.
Absolutely. Go on, Stu. Pick it up from here, sir.
Yeah, and it's already been mentioned a couple of times, but there are a number of players from Adrian who have made their way to Coventry this year, and we'll just talk a little bit about each of them. We'll start with the most familiar to Blaze fans, at least, in Alessio Luciani, who's obviously been here a year. What was it like getting him into Adrian? Because he was dominating in the OJHL and then moved into the college. How did that sort of process work?
Yeah, well, the OJ is a league that we're very, very familiar with. The league transfers well at the Division III level. We've hit some home runs out of that league in the past, and Luch was one of those guys. You monitored him all year. We didn't really talk to him early on because he was just no pun intended, but he kind of started in a blaze, the season, and you were like, man, this guy's pretty good. He might get a Division I deal, but as everybody there knows, he's only like 5'8" and a little bit light. So for him to make the jump to Division I certainly would have been, maybe a big task. But I had talked to some guys at the Division I level that were interested in him, and for them it was just kind of, they were stuck. Is this guy going to be a top 6 guy, or is he going to be out of the lineup? He's probably not going to play on our 3rd or 4th line and be that much of a grinder, penalty killer, big body, hard to play against. And I had come to learn, coaching Alessio, that he's kind of exactly that. He's a grinder and he's hard to play against. He's slippery. Is he going to go out and physically impose on somebody? Not necessarily, but he's going to make you work, and he's going to be really hard for you to keep track of on the ice. That slippery game that he plays. I think he fits in anywhere in the lineup. You can put him on your 1st line, you can put him on your 4th line. You can kill penalties, you can play the power play, you can play the flank on the power play, you can play the bumper, you can play net front. He's really a guy that can do anything. But went down. Actually, I took my son, who's now 10. He was 4 or 5 at the time. Went to a game in Toronto to watch Alessio play, and we went and talked to him after the game, and Luch, I think, saw a good opportunity to come be a difference maker at a high-end Division III program, and it came down to us and SUNY Geneseo. who, you fast forward a few years, we're playing him in the national title game. So maybe Alessio was the difference maker there. If he was in a Geneseo jersey, maybe they beat us that night, but we were lucky to have him. But he was a heck of a player for us, and you guys are seeing it firsthand. I mean, he can be dynamic, but he can, he can play the game the right way, and he really is a 200-foot player.
Yeah, and I think that the point there that you've mentioned about how he can play up and down the lineup, like line one, line two, like it doesn't really matter what situation it is, he can do a job. I think Blaze fans saw that last year because he was playing top line minutes on some occasions. He was playing on the third line. He definitely got power play time. And, particularly, would you even be surprised at how well he was able to transition his game from D3 to the pro level? Because, size, again, is a factor when you move up to sort of like that pro game. But 20 goals in your rookie season, it's not bad going.
Yeah, I'm not, Stu. I'm not trying to be cocky about it, but I'm not shocked. I wasn't shocked. I felt like he deserved whatever opportunity that he wanted to pursue. And if he wanted to stay in the States and try to feel it out, he could have. But I think he would have had to have a coach that would be willing to give him maybe 10 games to figure it out. And when he had the opportunity to sign in Coventry, you knew that contract was a little bit more guaranteed. And I think if he could get a long runway there, he certainly would have proven his value, and I think he did that for Stu.
He certainly did, and that's I'm sure as long with the prior knowledge, and that's why Kevin's brought him back. And if you look at his second year at Adrian, he kind of grew and grew as well. Player of the year, all conference team. Do you see that kind of trajectory moving forward for Alessio? How he's grown to this date.
Yeah, no, I think Alessio's only going to be better in his second year. Now he's really comfortable, right? He knows Coventry, he knows the league, he knows what the travel's like. That'll help him be that much more prepared. And now he's going to have some other guys surrounding him, and having Kevin's familiarity with him as a go-to guy when Kevin was at Adrian with us. So I think Luch is certainly going to become very dependable for Kevin. And then you surround him with some other guys there, with Cam and Heinze. Just being there together, I think makes you that much more comfortable as well.
Maybe let's touch upon Cam there as the next one. What can you tell us about him as a person and as a goalie?
I mean, Cam is a top-notch person. I mean, all these guys are, and first and foremost, I think that's why so many of our guys do, climb the ladder, because they're such good people that are willing to work and put the work in, and they're role models for kids in the community and aspiring hockey players. So, I think you don't get anywhere without being a good person. But, Cam is a guy that, I talk about Kevin and his detail. Cam brought the detail to the dressing room when he got here. Like, he just had this process that I'd never seen a player go through. And Cam spent time, in the ECHL level, the American Hockey League level, Division I. And I've seen hockey at the highest level. I've got a brother that plays for the St. Louis Blues in the National Hockey League, and I've been around him and his teammates, and nobody has a process that I've ever seen like Cam. I mean, he gets to the rink plenty early, probably too early. The equipment guys probably hate him some days, and he's definitely one of the last guys to leave. But he's just so process oriented, probably to a fault. We had to break down some walls. Kevin and I did. It was almost borderline superstitious. And, we had to get Cam out of the place of, hey, if I can't do, my racquetball warm up, 36 minutes before we go on the ice for warm up, I'm going to play terrible. We had to help him get through that and understand, like, hey, you might get a flat tire on the bus on the way to a game, and you're gonna have to be able to adjust and ad lib. And I think we really saw Cam mature, his second and third years at Adrian, and he's just continued to pursue that level of excellence and really fine tune that process for the pro game. And he didn't have a ton of playing time last year in the net. but he's proven through the last couple of years that he's a good goaltender at that level. Spent some significant time in the American Hockey League at the end last year in the playoffs, and I'm sure that's an invaluable experience for Cam. And I'd love to see him, get a great opportunity in Coventry and maybe win the net. I know I think I saw that Art Bray's there, and like he's a good goaltender, and those guys, they're gonna have a good battle. But Cam can win games. He's a winner. He went undefeated his senior year at Adrian, won a national title. And it's no accident that kid's a winner.
And that's often quite important. Just having guys around the locker room who know what it takes to win. Like it does. Ed will probably come on and talk about habits in a bit. But you mentioned that national title. We had a conversation with Kevin Moore a little while back, and he was telling us about how Cam was recruited to be that guy, to be the netminder who brought NCHA titles, who brought that national title. So how fulfilling was it to see it actually happen when you've gone through the process and that guy steps up in his senior year and makes sort of puts the team on his back and makes it work?
Yeah, I mean, it was fulfilling on a million levels. As the first in school history of any sport. And for hockey, we'd been pursuing it for 15 years at that point. So it was awesome. But in regards to Cam, you're right. Like the conversation that Kevin and I and Cam had, we were on a long recruiting trip in the car, Kevin and I, and we ended up like 2 hours on the phone with Cam, and we discussed that at length. And his process was going to ultimately get him to where he wanted to be, and he believed in that. And what maybe Cam should be a salesman when he's done playing hockey, because he sold us on him being the guy and us winning a national title. So to see the work that he put in, and ultimately for him to raise that trophy and be the one in the net when the guys piled off the bench and mobbed him, it was absolutely perfect ending. And it was just one of those moments where you get to the end and it's what you dreamt of, and it was every bit of that.
Yeah. I'll break the fourth wall a little bit. We had a media day with the guys last weekend, and a lot of them had long travel because they've been flying into the UK over the previous few days. Cam somehow managed to smile for probably about 3 hours of that media day, and I can't quite work out how he had the energy to do that. It just seemed like a really sort of positive, like, this is great opportunity, loving to be in Coventry, just want to get going. So it was it's nice to hear that that's just like it's part of the package. Yeah,
he's such an appreciative guy, Stu. He's been down at the bottom of, he's been the fourth goalie out of four, and he's been the guy that felt like he wasn't appreciated. So for him to go through that, for him to, even some personal trials and tribulations that he's gone through as a person. The guy was delivering Amazon packages a couple of years ago. So Cam is a guy that just appreciates the opportunity to show up at the rink and play every day.
Yeah. And one more guy that we've got to talk about, Zach Heinz, who's just finished there at Adrian. And how did Zach end up with you there?
Yeah, so Heinz, he played in the North American Hockey League, the probably the second junior league in the States, and he was a guy. He's from Michigan, so we were very familiar with him, and he was on our radar. We had to pursue him for a little while. It was I think he was really disappointed not get the Division I love that all these guys want to get. But ultimately, we just stayed in the mix, and I talked to his coach on a pretty regular basis. Maybe it was weekly, sometimes daily, even as we got to the end. And Zach, I think, was considering hanging him up. I think he felt like he failed a little bit by not getting a Division I deal, and said, I'm gonna just figure out what's next. And then he was back home. I think it was summertime, and he's cutting the grass at his mom and dad's house and trying to figure out what's next. And he and I had some really good conversations in days leading up, and he gave me a call, and that was a call I'll never forget, because I was actually in Boston walking around. 2019, I think it was June 12th, and it was Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, and I thought it was going to be a great day. My brother's playing in the final, and Heinze calls and he commits, and I said, Heinze, I'm never going to forget this call, and I don't forget a lot of those calls, but that one in particular, like, it just stands out because I know exactly where I was in that moment. And I was so happy, and I thought it was a great omen for my brother and his Bruins, but it didn't happen that night for them, and St. Louis won. But ultimately, Zach, that process, getting to know him and understanding the person he is, he slid in pretty seamlessly. And as a freshman, he played on our top line, and was an excellent addition. And he was on that national championship team, and then he's been with us the last couple of years. He's really evolved into a leader. He wasn't that early on, but he's become that. He's mature. He knows how to work, and like we talk about with the other guys, he knows how to win, and that's important.
Yeah, and you mentioned that he came in as a freshman and produced on the top line. Actually, he's a point a game in D3 every year. That takes some doing. So what sort of type of player is he? What's the game of Zach Heinz that we'll see here in Coventry?
Yeah, I mean he's got hands like you've not seen. I mean they're too quick. I mean sometimes too quick for himself. He'll end up with the puck on a string, and next thing he's got a little bobble and he's got to figure out a way to get it back, but he does. He's a guy that can really make plays, and he's slippery again, kind of like Luch. I'd say Luch's number one attributes is work ethic. But I think Heinze, he's just so elusive. He'll get the puck in the corner and he'll come out somehow, or he'll have 2-3 jukes, make an extra pass, and he can shoot it too. He's got a really good shot, quick release. He's got a nose for the net. I think he really understands, how to produce.
Yeah, excellent. I think we're really excited to have all of those guys here in Coventry as we sort of move into a new era with Kevin as the coach. And I'll pass on back to Ed.
Yeah, no, thanks, Stu. And I always kind of say, Adam, and I know it's a little bit cliche, but the hard stuff that you go through in life, the hard bits of the road kind of shape who you are. And it's really interesting to hear that all three of those guys that have come over to the Coventry Blaze, through one way or another, have had a real bit of trial and tribulation in their history. That's very, very interesting. And I think, generally speaking, as a coach, you have a little bit of that as well with teams, don't you? However, you must be so proud looking back on your time at Adrian with your record. I know some guys don't really care about that, and I'm not sure if you are one, but 229 wins, I think it was 52 losses and 14, I think it's ties, is insane. I think that's like just over 80% win record. Just tell us a little bit about how you feel when you see that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think anybody that says they don't care about their record's lying, because that's why we do this, right? Like, we want to win. I'm proud as heck of that record. I actually feel like maybe we left some wins on the table. And whether that's cocky or arrogant, I don't know. But I believe in what we do. I believe in the process that we had at Adrian when I was there. And I believe that it was a place for our guys to come and become great men, ready to be husbands and fathers. And if they want to do professional hockey after, we'd give them every key that we could to try to figure it out and open those doors. And so many of those guys have. So, to me, like, the wins and losses are great. And I don't think this is cliche at all, but, I think you don't get to those wins or losses without great people. And I think that's the number one thing that we did, especially later in my time at Adrian. Maybe the first 4 or 5 years, I went out and accumulated talent and figured that any kid with any warts, we could cure those warts and fix those guys. But you have to get the right people, is what I kind of learned later on. And Kevin was maybe one of those guys that really helped me get to that point. He when he snuffed something out that he thought was bogus, Kevin would call it. And whether it was me or the guys, he had no problem, hiding it. He wouldn't beat around the bush. He thought that we had to handle it. And that was a lesson for me as a head coach at the time that I had to figure out. I was young, and I was 30 when I got the job. And then, you're 34, 35, you're trying to hang on to being young still and try to be cool with the guys, and you want the guys to like you. But sometimes, like, being like's not the most important thing for those guys and their hockey and ultimately their lives. Now I'm a dad with 3 kids. I got an 11, an 8, and a 5-year-old. And, I totally understand that those guys, I can't be their friends, my kids. And, as a coach now, and now as an assistant coach, my role changed even a bit again. where I have to be probably a little bit more of that go-between, be friendly with the guys, and let the head coach, do his thing, and kind of be the guy with the iron fist. But ultimately, Ed, I just think that we did such a good job late in my time at Adrian of kind of towing the line of being, hey, we're gonna be strict, we're gonna be hard, but we're gonna have a ton of fun, but we're gonna be fair, and we're gonna help you guys become great people and great hockey players.
Yeah, there's a fine balance, isn't there? I was talking to Kevin about exactly the same topic, kind of not that long ago, maybe even last week. And I said something along the lines of, you've got great people here. Are you looking at great people first? And he said something along the lines that made me smile. He goes, well, no, because if I just signed great people, they might suck as hockey players. So, and that doesn't get us anywhere. So it really is a fine balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's so well put by Kevin. That's such a Kevin phrase. And yeah, it's true. I mean, you have to find good hockey players. But you can find those guys, and you go out and you look at them, you can see them. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that have good eyes and can scout, but the guys that are going to look under the hood and put in the time and really get to know the players, you'll find out pretty quick what type of people they are.
And like you said, Kevin clearly brought that to Adrian. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty apparent he's gone through a similar process with signing this team in Coventry.
Yeah, no, he has. I've spent hours on the phone with him, and I don't even work for you guys. Maybe I should get a paycheck. But no, he's absolutely process oriented, and he cares a lot. And you guys are getting a heck of a human being there, and he's gonna do a great job as a coach too.
In some ways, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's certainly one of our old coaches, a guy called Chuck Weber. He's at RPI as an assistant in D1. And he said really candidly to us maybe a year or so ago, he said, if I went in as a successful professional head coach, like, he won a couple of Kelly Cups and won the playoffs over here and a bunch of other stuff along the way. He said, if I went into the NCAA as a head coach right now, I'd have failed. Because it's not just coaching a hockey team. There is so much else to it with the schooling, with, frankly, you've got younger guys for the most part. If you get some guys in the East Coast that come straight out of the CHL, wherever it is, fine. They might kind of just be 21, 22. But for the most part, you've got some younger guys. And there's just way more to it. Was that the case for you as well at D3?
Yeah, well, you just I spent my first 2 years coaching in the USHL, and it was just hockey for me at the time, and helping those guys get their Division I aspirations and pro hockey and all that stuff. Then you get to college hockey, and you've got to wear 42 hats. I'm the CEO basically of the organization, so it was a lot of not hockey, which was hard, and part of the appeal for me to get this job in Bakersfield now is that it's going to be all hockey again. So that's exciting, but. I think, it's funny you bring up Chuck. Chuck was my first pro coach in Cincinnati in the ECHL. Yeah, and actually, I was one of the last players cut from that team that won the second Kelly Cup there. Yeah, absolutely. So that one stings a little bit. Chuck and I are good buddies, and seen him on the road recruiting a whole bunch, and I appreciate the opportunity that he gave me. But he's so right. When it goes to leaving pro to go to college, and it's very different worlds.
Yeah, I think the point I was kind of going to make there is the Elite League, for the most part, I can't speak for all the organizations, but certainly in Coventry and a few others, it's really similar. There's a lot of parallels there. You're not just coaching the team. You are, running hockey ops. You're doing all sorts of other stuff at the same time. And I guess having gone through the path that he's trodden, there's so much crossover that's going to have given him valuable experience.
Yeah, no, Kevin's prepared for this, whether it's him running the program at St. Scholastica or, being around Princeton or being around our time at Adrian, and then obviously getting the opportunity to be an assistant at Nottingham last year and now being a head coach. I mean, he's so prepared and you're right. There's so many parallels.
I guess the final word then for a guy that's won over 80% of the hockey games that he's coached, just tell us about how, well, I mean, it's very important, obviously, but how you embed that winning culture into a locker room.
I mean, it's every day. You have to live it every single day, and the players will sniff it out if you're phony. If you want the guys to be held accountable, you have to live the same things. You have to do the same things. I can't tell them to be a good person and go out and and be a mess in public, or not treat my family the right way. I think you can tell a lot about somebody by the relationship they have with their significant others, and their families and where they come from, and it's great to see our guys doing the right things on and off the ice. And if we can identify the talent, and then again get those right people in there, you can certainly have that recipe of success.
And then the other thing, final thing, is keeping that going, because what's that old adage? Don't get too high with the highs, too low with the lows.
Yeah, no, that's so true, Ed. It's that's the hardest part, because when you get to the top, like, you have a bigger target on your back, and you're getting everybody's best every single night. But you're also in a place where people want to be part of what you're doing. When it's going well, people want to be there, and so you're kind of getting it at both ends. But it's certainly special.
Adam Krug, I really appreciate this. This has been an awesome conversation. We're very lucky to be able to do this, so I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate you guys, Stu. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Blaze TV for this very special episode. We'll have a couple more of these coming your way. And we've got some games coming your way real soon too, which is very exciting. Bye for now.